satellites? A satellite represents a journey, information gathering, this journey around the Earth.
Welcome to Satellite
Welcome
Haiku.
to Satellite Haiku.
I'd be Milo.
I'm Sean.
When your kids were really little, did you ever do voices with them? Like where you pretended to be different characters?
I still do all the time.
All the time, right? I remember
voices, wordplay, all of it. Yeah. Anyway.
I remember that I took my kids to the Waldorf school, and I guess Janai was like I don't know, 2 or something, and so Sochi was really maybe she was 3, and Sochi was like 18 months, and I was like tried to be like Jim Carrey for the kids, like I would like each character had and I constantly had different voices, and I remember one of the Waldorf teachers came up to me. And I was also trying to be a children's book illustrator. Like I had gone to Harcourt and Brace and shopped around a portfolio, and I was like, that was like a dream of mine. Like, Maurice Sendak was my hero. So anyway, she comes and she goes, just so from the Steiner philosophy, Rudolf Steiner's thing is we don't do voices. We read in a monotone, and we don't, we and we actually, ideally you would tell a story, not like listen to one on tape. You don't watch movie. Like anyway, well, hold on, wait. There was
it's okay to pick and choose when you buy into like a guiding, when you have a guiding philosophy, you can still cherry pick a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
You can still decide that some things. Anyway, go ahead.
So I had that night, like I told the girls about that because I would tell them stories, before bed, and I always had lots of voices. And Janai said, "Yeah, I'd be you shouldn't do the voices. Let's not do the voices, right?" So then I just decided to read like a robot. Like I was like, and then Tony walked down to the beach and he reached down and picked up, and she goes, "Oh, okay, go back and do the voices." And from then on, I did the voices from then on.
What a weird sort of prohibition that is.
Well, let me just, to be fair, I'll explain like briefly their philosophy around it, which I think actually there's some validity, especially to the picture book, at the early picture books. So imagine, and they're sort of, this is obviously there was no like, I guess Disney was early, maybe Steiner was a contemporary of Disney, I don't know. But anyway, the idea was like, if you've got a princess in the story, imagine if you describe the princess to the child and they have to imagine her.
No, I get it. You've talked about this before, but I totally disagree with it because the way we operate in the world is you see a princess and then you see a different princess and then you see a different princess and then you create your own princess, right? Like
based on
we don't have that. We don't have that in any other part of life. Like let's walk through the world with blindfolds on and plugs in our ears, and we'll only go by what the words say. So we don't formulate. So all the pictures we formulate in our heads are completely our own invention.
Right.
Like it makes no sense. It makes no sense. Like if you do a voice for a character and then somebody else does a different voice for that same character, and somebody else does a different voice for that same kind of character.
Yeah.
Then you have a bunch of different voices and you synthesize those and you riff on those and you create something different in your head that's an amalgam of those plus your own. That's how your brain works, right? Like you don't tell all those people don't do voices because this kid has to come up with the kid's going to come up with their own fucking robot voice then because they haven't been exposed to all the different voices. It's completely stupid.
Okay, wait.
So that's my I don't agree with the rationale as you've defended it. So I don't know.
No, it's and I always said that being a parent felt like this sort of the hardest job I ever did, but my most favorite and valued job, but also a giant experiment, right? Like, and
of course,
and my sister-in-law, who was anti-Waldorf, sort of like you just sort of did that. No, I don't.
I'm not anti-Waldorf. I just think like you don't have to go all in on every cult, the whole cult of Waldorf. You can be like, most of it's great, some of it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Like everything else. You go Catholicism, I'm a Catholic, but like I don't think this one thing about birth control makes any sense. So we're not going to do that one.
Right. Okay. So, and I might have said this before, but my sister-in-law, who had a child the same age as my youngest child. Like my niece was the same age, in the same class. And they eventually became Waldorf students. And then she became a Waldorf teacher. So like, this pattern was at the beginning, I said, yeah, they're not supposed to look at, not cameras. They're not supposed to look at TV or
like screens.
Devices. Like devices.
Yeah.
This is way before the smartphone. And she said, "Oh my God! Like it's going to be like we're raised by wolves in a closet under the stairs. Like what? They won't be able to be in the world. Like they'll walk into an office and they'll be like, oh my God, what is a keyboard? You know, like, and so anyway. So then she became a Waldorf school special ed teacher, and I was walking by her door on the way to the car, and there was a kid standing on a balance board. You know, those like it's like a ball with a flat board, and you stand on it. And then she was throwing bean bags for him to catch and asking him the times tables. And I just shouted, like, he's going to be, it's like he's being raised by clowns. Clowns in some kind of, clowns in a closet under the stairs.
A circus. Yeah.
But anyway. Yeah. So anyway, but what was the point? Oh, that the voices. So my question was, do you do voices? And, it's funny. So my mom has like, she's super kind to me, and like I'm like her favorite child. Like I'm just gonna admit it. Like, no, it's true. She'll all the other kids admit it.
I've seen your mom in action, and I don't think
discount it, right?
Yeah,
and then my younger sister,
you have 100% valid argument there.
My younger sister says, like, you have no idea. She's a different person with me. Like she's super critical.
Right.
She says
I think
your
your siblings don't even argue that point.
Right.
Like,
right.
All of you seem to agree that you are the favorite. Yeah.
And Jonathan was spoiled, and he was the youngest, but he's also the most sort of annoying and arrogant to her. So anyway, so I just
he took his youngest role to like a little bit.
Yeah, he cranked it all the way up.
On it. Yeah,
he cranked it all the way up. And anyway, so my point is that my mom said to my younger sister about my grandchild, who's like, I don't know, over a year old and is slowly starting to speak, but isn't certainly like jabbering away at like 18 months, And my mom said, if my daughter would stop speaking in those silly voices, then maybe she could actually talk. Because my daughter just has this crazy like, woo, ah, like has this really funny way of talking and makes up silly voices and make just weird words and stuff. And so my mom, who was a linguist, like my mom studied linguistics, but she's just as kind of like sitting there like, my great grandchild would be able to talk by now if people didn't talk to them in such a strange way.
Right. But like, and then I think we as humans, we have a real talent for like, especially really intelligent people like your mom. Like you can make a claim like that as a human, and then you can create the logical causal chain for that intuitively, logically. And then it sounds like science at that point, because you're a smart person, and like you can say chemtrails are real, and if you're really smart, you can kind of piece together like the follow the money type chain, right? Or whatever.
Yeah. You could. There's
a
way.
Or voices are the reason why the kids can't talk, or whatever, right? Like, and if you're smart enough, if you're a smart person, you can put together the entire sort of like causal chain that arrives at that conclusion with no evidence at all, right? It's like the circumstantial evidence, right? So. We're good at that.
We are good at that. To keep on the topic briefly of the voices. So the kids really liked, J.K. Rowling's, who's Harry Potter books, and we would listen to them on.
My daughter loves all the Harry Potter.
And
books,
have you tried the books on tape? Because we would listen to them on long car rides in the summer, like if we were driving up to San Francisco or something. And they're great for that because they're like, there were like 7 CDs or 8, and you just keep popping a new one in.
They're lengthy.
Really lengthy. And there was this guy, he's a British comedian. I have to put his name in the show notes. It's like begins with an H. Anyway, he won an Academy Award or what's the sound one? The music award.
Grammy.
He won a Grammy for like audiobook voiceover. Because he would do a different voice for each character. like significantly different. And then there'd be times when there'd be like a bunch of wizards in the room, like arguing, and there'd be like 11 people in the room, and he would give like a different voice for each person. And I was like, how the hell can he keep track? Like, I can't even.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like a rapid fire dialogue, and he just kept the voices going. And I was like, damn, man, it'd be easier if just hire like 5 other actors to do it with you. Like, you know what I mean? It just seemed.
Yeah. No, that's I love that. It's funny that you say
Jim
that.
Jim Hale, I think his name. Jim.
Oh yeah, I know who that is. Yeah, he's funny. Yeah. It's funny. So, okay, now I'm having a little bit of sympathy for both your arguments here now, or both sides of it, because I will say that when I listen to like literature, like if I listen to with audiobooks, for example, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times I'm really put off by, audiobooks where somebody's doing the voices, like adult literature, especially like, I don't know, like I'd rather have the author read, because when you hear the author read, they never do that. Right.
Yeah, sure.
They might, or they do it really subtly.
Yeah.
Like they'll do the voices so subtly different that you can tell that 2 different characters are talking, but barely.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
And I like that. However, if I'm listening to, I don't know what the difference is, because like I listened to Don Quixote. We were listening, my son and I, Dylan and I were listening to that, or my kids and I were listening to, and it's such a funny novel, right? And the version we were listening to on audio tape, same thing. Like the guy was doing all the voices, and there would be these group scenes. And what else? We listened to something else recently where they were doing all the voices, and it was so good. I don't know. There's something different, and maybe it's like sort of genre books and sort of like maybe children's books and stuff that are a little more, that I have a bigger tolerance for the voices, because I it's true, I don't like it at all in
in adult fiction, like adult.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's the difference. Anyway, I'll have to think about it some more.
So I guess one of the things that sort of came up to mind while I guess just got back from Santa Monica, and I spent like, I don't know, a week there or something.
Yeah.
And I had been going back and forth to San Diego to help my daughter move. And anyway, so yesterday or the day before, I had stumbled across this art bookstore called Arcana, which is in Culver City. And it's like, like 5,000 of photo monographs, painters, and filmmakers.
So it's like an art bookstore.
Just art books, and then all the monographs you could probably. They're trying to
love that kind of store.
Yeah, they're trying to like get one copy of every single one ever printed, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there were ones that were signed, and you could, So
Nice.
I went looking for certain artists that have inspired me, and I got into my head that one of the when I first got to Tucson and was taking graduate photography classes at the U of A, I fell in love with these 2 twin brothers called the Starn twins. It's Doug and Mike Starn, and they would like take photographs and tear them and pin them back together it was very sort of OCD, but there was something I just loved about it, and so I eventually figured out the system, because they didn't have any like, just you know what I mean, like each book
like the Strand.
I even went up to the guy afterwards, and I was like, I wanted to ask so badly, and then I thought I can figure this out. I can definitely figure out, and they did. They had it totally alphabetized, but by like photo monographs versus filmmakers versus painters versus, you know what I mean? Like it was like,
I see.
Kind of.
So like they had sections,
but they didn't mark
and then within
them.
those sections, it was alphabetical, but you couldn't discern where the sections.
No, like they
began.
you could tell that whoever the owner was bought these like metal cabinets, and then they were like, should we put signs on them? No. Should we put any kind of labels? No. Just have to figure it out. Like, and like you have to, eventually kind of piece it together. Anyway, so I found this monograph really quickly of the Starn twins, and I went looking through it, and my sort of artistic heart exploded, because there was a lot of pieces in there that I hadn't seen. They're about 10 years older than us, from New Jersey. Okay. And I don't actually know if they're still working, but anyway, so I want to do a bunch of photography work, and I wanted to be re-inspired by them. And I just was thinking about influence. Like, you know how like you were saying, like, so this child sees a princess and then another princess and another one, and they start to piece together that there are certain parameters that make a princess, especially like an archaic or older one. They have a crown, there's a big fluffy dress, they maybe have, and then but then they see the variability within what they've seen, their sort of experience, and they kind of synthesize what to them an archetypal princess would be, but also they can start imagining, well, what would I want to be if I, you know what I mean? Like they can start to have that. And it comes from all the inputs. Like you said, it's not like if they were blind to, like you said, wearing blinkers, if they were blind to pictures of princesses and only could imagine.
And then you see other dimensions of that sort of idea too, where you'll see something that's a little bit of a parody of a princess, or just playing with the idea of a princess in a certain way, or doing it ironically or whatever, right? And then you start to piece together other sort of dimensions of that concept, princess. Like, you can fuck with it, right?
Yeah,
like,
totally. So I'm like looking through the Starn twins book, I realized that there's certain things, like I really like the color and I like the way they don't treat the photo print as like, like precious. They tear it and and I've done that my whole life. But then there's ways that I was like, I wouldn't want to copy them. They like to pin things to the wall that are just kind of like pieces of, and I'm not a fan of like just that sort of
like the art that sort of feels half-assed in a way.
Yeah, like when you come into like, and it's an installation, and there's like a pin with like a thread going down to the floor, and there's a pool of thread, and it's like my piece is called, the time I did, and you're sort of like,
no, I'm not big on that either. Where
it's a little bit,
it's conceptual art basically. Like the execution, there's no craft to it. There's like, it's a conceptual piece.
Yeah, and when like you read like a New Yorker cartoon and you go, like you get it. It's over. The interaction between you and the artist is over so quickly, and there's nothing to like delve into or to like explore further, because it's just, and that's to me feels very flat and kind of like you can move on like in 4.6 seconds. Whereas if there's a piece that's so complicated and you're trying to figure out where it begins and ends and what, you know what I mean? Then you can spend some time with it and really like get in there. Anyway, so my point was, I'm looking through this book and I'm thinking, I like that. I don't like that. I would love to have made that piece. Oh, wow. That's a cool trick. I'm going to use that, but in painting. You know what I mean? Like what they've done, they're scratching. It's not, don't want to do it to a photograph, but I could do it to a painting, And I was thinking about this idea of like, aren't we just these walking bags of fluid that as we move forward, we accumulate experience? Like, as you said, visual input from outside, interactions, experiences. And then when we go to make something, we've got that library of experience behind us. And then when we make something new, we're trying to make something that's synthesize something that's different. You know what I mean? Isn't that
right? I mean, that's art, right? In a nutshell, that's the creative process, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like you hear people talk about like, oh my God, there's only 8 tones in this major scale. Haven't all of the melodies been written already? But then you start asking, it's kind of like, well, what about there's timing? So like and chords, and like if you repeat, there's a lot of variables.
I mean, it's like saying, well, there's only, 120 elements in the periodic table. Like,
right, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, look at the world. I don't, by the way, I don't know how many elements there are in the periodic table. That was a complete, just a wild guess.
That's actually,
anyway,
I have a shirt.
So for our audience out there, I don't want people to be like, there's 88, you idiot. Or there's like 147. Because I don't know.
I do have this shirt, and it looks like there's probably about 52 or something. It's my guess on the shirt. Okay. But I could be
wrong. What did I say?
120?
I don't know.
But you might be like you're to your point that compounds are just combined elements, and once you add that variant, it becomes like exponentially
then
logarithmically.
We have the universe.
Yeah, then it's just so much more complex because you can combine them in multiple ways. Anyway, speaking of the universe, did you see that SpaceX is having their IPO?
Oh, I heard that. Yeah, I was going to reach out to our financial advisor and ask that he minimize our exposure to SpaceX and also these AI companies that will IPO at some point. I mean, SpaceX is some insane multiple of its valuation.
94 times revenue. 94 times revenue.
94. Yeah. It's nuts. It makes no sense. So
yeah, Professor Galloway was saying.
Meanwhile, like, not Elon doesn't have enough on his plate, so he's fomenting race riots in England now. So
my God, I didn't know that. Oh, yeah. Huh.
Yeah, so that's what he's busy with. That's what he seems most busy with the last few days.
I'll reveal that my wife is will hint to me that she doesn't want to, that fear of missing out, like FOMO. Mm-hmm. So she'll be like, "Don't you think we should get some SpaceX stock?" And I'm like, first of all, it's like, I mean, we bought.
People are saying, I mean, so I'm seeing like very credible financial people saying it's financial terrorism because what it's going to be like forced into index funds and stuff.
Yes, it will.
So like there's going to be all this exposure to it. Yep. And so I think it was, somebody was like, I think it was the S&P was like, we're not going to put it in the S&P 500. And people were like, oh, good.
But then NASDAQ said they're going to put it in the NASDAQ. So,
okay. Yeah.
So you're right. Like it does feel like it's, because if you wanted to buy the share,
but NASDAQ's an exchange, not an index fund. Right, like the S&P 500 is a list of stocks. It's not the exchange itself, right?
Right, right. Yeah. But what I meant was like if they rapidly roll it into the NASDAQ, there will be funds like Vanguard funds that pull NASDAQ.
There will be NASDAQ index funds and stuff
that will just include it automatically. And a lot of like a lot of institutional investors that, like my mom's retirement fund.
Exactly. So there's certain people that are excited about it, but like it's being foisted on a lot of people who don't know, don't necessarily have an opinion about it one way or another. And I don't know. It feels like it's such an extreme valuation ratio that it like he's defied the math many times. Like with Tesla's similarly underwater.
Tesla is similar,
and it has been for years. And there's a lot of people that say that Tesla's just riding on the cult of Elon Musk, his fanboys and hype, and it isn't worth anything near what its stock price reflects. And at some point it will crash, and it's not clear ever what will trigger a collapse like that. But it makes no sense. Like the price of Tesla makes no sense. And so, like people will speculate, well, when Chinese cars come to America, Tesla will collapse, like, or whatever. There's always speculation about like what will cause it to finally kind of confront reality, but who knows? So SpaceX could just follow the same trajectory where it just makes no sense, but it's held up anyway by, the cult of Elon.
And I'm not an analyst by any regard, but like I've heard that Musk has the intention to, because he's rolling everything together into the SpaceX IPO. So Starlink, which is the only one that actually makes money,
his AI company, like which is basically done, and he's just leasing that.
Data. I was listening to Professor Galloway and
like that's rolled into it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so he's going to roll in Twitter, which is done. Yeah. I mean, he just fucking lost $80 billion or something. Yeah. Then he's got
then his XAI.
The XAI actually, what happened was he way overbuilt capacity.
Yeah.
And then Google bought into it, and Gemini's just using his capacity, so he can rent that shit.
Well, he's selling it to to Google and Anthropic.
Yeah.
Right.
So in some ways he fucked up, but then he got saved by these other people had need.
Except there's all kinds of shenanigans going on about like how those revenues are being booked by these different.
It's weird. But he wants to roll it all together, and so all the businesses the only one that's actually making money is Starlink. Starlink is a cash cow business that everyone loves it. It works well. It should be expanded. You know what I mean? It's everyone loves it. But all the other ones are just like meme stocks. They're like on paper, they're burning through money, but on paper they haven't made any profits.
Yeah, and Starlink, it's just like the idea of Starlink, that sort of like that level of important technology being essentially owned by one guy is not.
It is
not
bad.
Great.
It's bad. Anyway. It's terrible. Yeah. He also wants to put data centers into orbit.
Into orbit, yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what the benefit there is, but maybe it's cool. It's cooler. You don't have to cool them.
Well, it's cooler. There's no space. There's less space on Earth. You don't have to deal with municipal kind of like
true. Yeah.
pushback. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's a good, interesting point. You do have to deal with space trash hitting your thing, which is definitely
and all the space trash that you're creating by doing that.
Right.
In a way, right? Like, because he's talking about how like the number of satellites. It's like 100,000 satellites is what he talked about putting up there.
Yeah,
Something
I'm not
like
sure.
that.
I am not sure. I mean, I know that when I was deep in the Amazon, in the Ecuadorian Amazon, as far away as I've ever been from quote unquote like a road, like a 2-hour plane ride from the nearest road, into the jungle. When I pulled up my DJI drone, I had 27 satellites, and in Tucson I have 22.
Have you ever watched a satellite launch, like where there's a whole string of them in the sky?
Yeah, I have.
We were in Joshua Tree, and last summer, I think it was last summer, and we looked up at the sky, and there was this, like, you know what satellites look like? It's a tiny pin of light, right?
Yeah.
There was like a trail of them.
They don't blink, and stars blink, right? Is that true?
No, they don't twinkle. Yeah,
they don't twinkle.
But they're moving like an airplane, but they're moving kind of fast, and there's this tiny point of light, right?
Yep.
But there was a whole line of them, like a weird trail, and I was like, it looked like UFOs. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, it was like 15 pins of light in a row, really tiny pinpoints, just like going and shooting across the sky, and I was like, what is that? And I looked at some research, and I was like, oh, that's how they launch satellites. Sometimes they launch them as a group.
Right. I think they're trying to make a grid, so they spread them out over a period. I don't honestly.
So I'd never seen one I'd never seen it in actual with my actual eyes, and I didn't know that that's what it looked like or how they did it. Like, it's like, what do they call anyway?
Yeah. So what we're talking about influence and art, and going back to like the princess thing. So one thing I love to bring up and sort of advertise for them is the Museum of the Musical Instrument in North Phoenix. Have you been there? At some point, if you're going to take a trip to Arizona to go to the Grand Canyon with the kids or something, we got to meet up there. I would love to. The musical instrument. Cool. It was
I would love to see it,
three or five music ethnography, like professors had these collections. And they decided to put them together, and then they realized how beautiful it was, and then they just got a lot of funding and built this incredible facility. It takes it's exhausting to go through, but if you were to see every exhibit and actually like listen to the music and like interact with each exhibit, it would probably take you 8 hours. So I've done it like 4 hours, and I got halfway through, and then I did like the other half another time. But I was like exhausted anyway. Anyway, there's a place for kids to play with instruments, like a huge room that has tons of instruments. Anyway, nice. and I've always said, if you're ever losing faith in humanity or you've lost faith in humanity, go to the Museum of the Musical Instrument and walk through it and notice that throughout tens, there were hundreds of thousands of years, geographical distance, culture, religion, this thread that humans love melody and rhythm and ornamentation and dance. Like every single culture, every group, every tribe, since the beginning of humankind has some bit of music, dance, and rhythm. And you just start walking through, and it's like you go from this like, East Timor, cannibals to Jimi Hendrix, and you're just like, oh my God, like this is human, this is humans' love to express themselves with melody.
You made me think about, so the World Cup is happening right now, right?
Yeah.
And then if you watch like international soccer at all, like World Cup stuff, like, the national teams, but when you watch just like Mexican soccer matches or even British, right? Like the songs, like the chants, like there's so much of that music basically, right? That's just being made up by fans. And we just don't do any of that here. Like, we are the most boring set of fans in sports,
It's
in
true.
global sports, right?
It's
Like,
true.
and I was thinking about like, so I'm going to school right now, these like night classes I'm taking online, right? And we had this exercise for one of my classes last night where we were put in these breakout rooms on Zoom, and the question we were supposed to sort of talk about was like, we're supposed to sort of like we were each supposed to share like, what is my culture? Like, when I think of my culture, what do I think of, right? As a white American, it's like a weird, hard question, a weirdly hard question,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, what is my culture?
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad. Like, I sort of feel like there's a lot of like American discontent and outrage and stuff towards like immigrants and people of color and stuff that might, in a way, tie back to just Americans not having any culture of their own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like because if you're, imagine like, like these anyway, minorities and stuff that have like a clearly discernible culture that they embrace, they get together, they have barbecues. Like we do that too, but like there's something different. I don't know. And not to extrapolate too much, but anyway, so I'm thinking like, so you're talking about like this musical thing, and it's totally true, and you see it play out in like in one of the venues where it's playing out right now is sports. I mean, where you can see it vividly in the Koreans and it's like every country does it. The Koreans have their songs. The Japanese, like you go to a Japanese baseball games, each player has their own audience chant, right? British, same thing. Like the star players all have a different song, and you have like the sort of like the diss track that you sing for the opposing player, right? Like that's the star of the other team, and you have a song like that's like to attack that guy, right? As fans. And even the Germans, as stiff as they are, have songs in there. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it's so weird that we don't. Like we're not fun that way. We don't have that. Anyway, I feel like there's so much music there's so many musical genres that originate in America, right? Like rock and roll, right? And jazz, and bluegrass music. I mean, they have connections to other cultures. Like bluegrass music has some roots in like Scottish music and stuff, and Irish music. But yeah, it's wild. Like we are a musical country. Like a lot of music has come out of this country, but like we don't spontaneously burst into musical stuff as in groups in a way that other countries do, other groups do.
This makes me
that
think
was a long ramble.
No. It makes me think. I love that you brought up the World Cup because I wanted to talk about that too. Because, for instance, like my wife, the first game, who I'm trying to think who. I guess it's America versus Bosnia, and they're going to show it on the Hotel Congress back lot, like on a huge screen. So my wife was like, "Let's go, let's go." It starts at 6. She loved, like when I would first started dating my wife, we would go to. We actually were at I guess. Are they every 5 years, the World Cup?
4 years, I think.
Every 4. Yeah. So I guess like 3 World Cups ago, we were at a bar, but didn't know each other. And we described how it was like Colombia versus Brazil. And she was at that game, and I was like just there with some friends, and like when Brazil would score, like it was like you had to cover your ears because they had brought like all these noisemakers and were screaming and shouting and singing. And then when Colombia would score, they would like the two sides of the bar would just go crazy. And and I went to when I first went to Colombia with my daughters, and I was dating my wife, just briefly had started dating her, and my now brother-in-law took me out to. We just were at this little bar and we were watching. Like the Colombian national team was like playing, it wasn't even like, Copa America or something. It was just like a tiny little league, And when they scored, I remember my brother-in-law like turned, and I was worried that he was having an aneurysm because like the veins on his head were popping out, and he was and I just thought like, oh my God. Like
I think it's so beautiful, to be honest.
I wish that I was that passionate about the game. You know what I mean? I was kind of.
I love sports in for that reason. Like I think it's one of the most beautiful things that exists. That's like you talked about, like having faith in humanity. It's one of the things that gives me faith in humanity. When you go to a sporting event, it is the definition of a melting pot. Like
Right, yeah.
everything else disappears and you're just there. And like I have my Flyers shirt on right now. And there's something about like being a fan of a team or of a sport, and I don't know. It's just something I think it's one of the few areas left that's pure in a way, that feels pure often enough.
Yeah.
And it breaks boundaries that divide us in other ways, in worse ways, right? In serious ways. It dissolves those boundaries. Yeah. And it's funny because like, like I have sports loving friends that I can watch stuff with and whatnot, and kind of we can have those conversations about like, and I had a friend that I used to work with, a guy I used to work with, who he was just sort of mystified. And this is like there's sort of tech nerd and other art nerds that I am good friends with that just have zero interest. Like they can't fathom like, why would anybody be interested in sports? And I was trying to explain to one of them one day, this was years ago. I said, well, I mean, you like you like a good movie, you like a good TV show, you like a good book, right? Like you get into the characters and you get into the narrative and you get into the sort of the conflicts and challenges and relationships and all that. Like when you watch a good story, that's all sports is. Like it's not the score and the stats, like that's there. But like, it's like, oh, that player on that team used to play for the coach on the other team, and they had a really difficult, tense, they clashed as personalities a lot. Now they're playing now they're on opposite sides of this game, right? Like that's a story, right? Like, oh, those two guys have a beef, right? Like, or, oh, those two guys, they're brothers and they play on the same team, right? Or, that guy came back from an injury that he was gone all last season and the team really missed him, right? Like these are stories that are just as powerful as any other stories. And then you have the competitiveness and the athleticism and all the stuff that you also, that's just layered on that. But there's the story aspect too, that I think people who appreciate stories in other forms can relate to. But yeah, it's funny because I feel like, like you are my best friend, but I think that's one area where we don't have like that you don't share with me is the sport, the sort of the love of sport that I have. Like I love baseball. It's one of my great pleasures to watch baseball.
My dad, you're like my dad. My dad he got my mom into it. My mom, like they watched what is it? Who's the Tampa Rays?
The Rays. Yeah.
They like watch every single game. They go to games. Like my mom is into baseball now because of my dad.
So I think like I don't have anyone in my life that I feel as kindred with in as many ways as I am with you, right? Like, but that is one area where we don't quite mesh, right? And then I think of my friends who are sports people, and most of them I have zero other things in common with. Like we might like beer together, right? Like, or there's like, it drifts a little bit into other areas, but nothing close to what you and I have.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Yeah, it's funny.
What's true for me, what I think about, because I certainly, like I loved going to Flyers games with you. My uncle Nishan, before he passed away, was a minor league pitcher. Nishan, the artist.
Yeah, I remember.
And he would take us with me. He would take us to Phillies games, and I loved like going to the game, like charge.
I know that you like, and just like what you described about the soccer match that you were there and the crowd, like you like the experience of all of that. Yeah, it's just not something like if I started to talk to you about the players on X team, like you would be like, okay, cool. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's
right?
true.
Like
I more am interested.
Like it's not like you're anti.
Right.
It's just not. It's just something you don't really make room for in your life because it's not that interesting to you. But like if you're taken to a game, or if there's a reason, if there's some pretext where you're going to watch a game, like you'll enjoy it as much as anybody.
Like I stumbled across. I was a couple of days ago. I was having dinner by myself in Santa Monica, and I walked over to this. It was Seoul food Korean, like an African American woman married like a Korean guy. and they
Yeah.
had like soul food,
Nice.
Korean food. It was really good. It was really good.
That sounds
It
amazing.
was so good. And like the fried chicken sandwich was like spicy Korean fried chicken sandwich. So good.
That sounds so good.
So anyway, they happened to have the Knicks game on.
Yeah.
And it was me, and I was trying to do some work, but I realized it was worth watching. There were two families.
Oh my gosh, the Knicks game a couple nights ago,
not
where
the
they
one
came back
where
from
not the one
29
where they came
down?
back. It was the one where they
Okay.
lost. It was the third game they lost. A second game they lost.
I was watching that one the other night with my wife, and she wasn't really watching it, but I was like, you know, she likes to watch her shows, right? And I was taking up the TV time with watching the game, right? So as the Knicks were down 29 points, I was like, you can turn this off.
Turn this off. Yeah, you missed it. You stopped watching.
And then she was doing stuff, so she didn't turn it off, and I was kind of doing stuff and half watching too. And I was like, as they started to claw their way back, I was like, oh, now it's a 15-point game, huh? I was like, I guess it's sort of getting interesting, but I was still thinking, well, like, they have no chance. It's 15 points, right?
Totally.
Anyways, continue what you were saying.
Well, what's ironic is I remember when I would look at the clock and say, oh, it's 1:08. And my daughter would be like, there's 50,000 times you've looked at the clock and didn't notice what the time was. And then you're only, so like I went to this game, I watched this game and I happened to stumble in at the end. And they were like losing by 5 or something. And then they came back and then they lost by 2. And it was like so not exciting. Like they just couldn't pull, they couldn't come back from this. And I was like, wow, that was just such a waste of time. Like it was uninspiring. Like no one did anything amazing. And it seemed like the last 7 minutes were just them going to lose, and then they did. It's like by like a very small margin, and they just couldn't come back. So I missed the 29-point clawback. That sounds pretty exciting. Like, what did they?
Well, it's the same thing. Like, but we were watching that last 7 minutes, and if they did come back, or if it was back and forth at the end, like it almost was, right? Like,
yeah. You know what's funny?
I know what you mean. But what you just described is a lot of my non-sports friends how they describe it. It's like, if they do spend time watching sports, they're like, I wish I had that 2 hours back.
If it wasn't like this incredibly historic outcome, that's the thing. Is you've got to watch
I think a lot of sports you can just have in the background. Like it's good ambient TV.
Like you said, you weren't really paying attention until they started to come back, and then you start watching it. I do remember when I was at NYU, we had a friend. He wasn't a roommate, but he would come over and watch. And this guy from Philadelphia. And he loved Randall Cunningham. And so he loved him so much that I loved Randall Cunningham. Like I fell in love with the Eagles because he did. And he was like
that's kind of my story of the Flyers. Like it was other people in my life were really big Flyers fans that I enjoyed being with. And so I was like, oh, the Flyers. Anyway, you
took me to a game once where Brad Marsh was playing without a helmet. And I remember we were pretty.
He was one of the few.
We were pretty close
one of the
to
last few that grandfathered that. Yeah,
totally. We were pretty close to the ice too. Like we were down pretty close, and I remember you saying, "Yeah, Brad's the enforcer. Like Brad's a pretty mean. He's very like the Flyers are called the Broad Street Bullies, but he's like the bully of the bullies. Like he's
he was old school.
Anyway, we are going to watch this U.S. team play tonight against Bosnia just for fun. My wife really loves she only really watches when it's the World Cup or the Copa America. She doesn't really like turn it on and like follow the
like the different
Real. What's
some other league down there?
What's the European one called that league?
Like the Champions League.
Yeah, like
that's a different one. Yeah,
maybe like
there's a bunch of different. European
she'll like
leagues,
tune in for like the playoffs of like the Champions League.
That's the funny thing about soccer is there's like the leagues the teams play in in their local leagues.
Yeah.
But then they like get reshuffled onto other teams to play like the Champions League, and then they get reshuffled.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird. Right?
It's what sort of is mind blowing, and I just don't.
So they're
understand
playing year round. Basically,
is how, for instance, like a Saudi prince will buy Manchester United, and then he'll like buy the right to buy a player from Real Madrid, and like he'll pay $50 million to like maybe choose to buy him next year. Like, and it just like becomes this like. Just like it's almost like
a team will borrow a player from another team.
Mortgage-backed derivatives. Like remember those during the thing? It was like
exactly
someone and like the player himself gets traded and they have to move somewhere and it's not their choice, and like they don't even get a bunch of money for what I mean. Like just so like they're treating them like little pawns, like in a chess game in this European thing. Anyway, I do like watching. For instance, I watched. Do you remember in Brazil when they had the World Cup? And Messi it was like it had come down, it was tie score, and it came down to penalty kicks. And it was like 7-7. And like it was, Messi comes up and just kicked it into the stands. And everyone was like, if you just rolled it at the goal, that would be more likely to go in than if you kick it into the stands, but the pressure, and he, Argentina had been like, Matt, we have to win a game with Messi. And the pressure was so great that he choked and kicked it literally way over the goal into like the crowd. And everyone was like, wow, man, like that, you literally could have just like tapped it with your toe toward the goal and it would have been more likely to go in than that, I don't know. So, but also the Brazilians lost to the Germans in Brazil in the final that year. And the Brazilians came up with this term. I can't say it in. I
was working with a German guy during that, like at a job, and we had the game on in a conference room, and he was really busy and he couldn't watch it.
Yeah.
And that was when Germany went up 5-0 in like the first.
Yeah, they were so good, man.
It was crazy.
And
like against Brazil, it was like everybody was hyping it to be, these are the two powerhouses of soccer. It's going to be an amazing match. And then Germany was up 5-0 in the first 20 minutes or something crazy like that.
Neymar broke his back. So they were down players for sure. Like Neymar had broke his back earlier.
Oh, maybe that was a different year, I think.
He got kneed in the back.
I think he was playing. Anyway, go ahead, yeah.
Anyway, so it wasn't quite. Anyway, so the Brazilians came up with this expression, and I can't say it in Portuguese. Maybe we can put it in the notes. But basically, if you say to someone, I crashed my car and I just got divorced, and now I came down and I have like pneumonia or something, and they say, at least it's not 7. Because they lost by 7
and that's
points.
What they mean.
And it refers
so it became an expression.
It literally is like, it can't be as bad as when we lost to Germany.
That loss.
That loss was, at least it's not 7. And it's like, it refers.
That's awesome. That's great.
I love it. I love it. But I do remember that.
But that's again, like it's sports. There's some way that it's one of the last domains that brings people together in a certain way. Because like that's an example of
totally.
Just that expression itself is an example of sport bringing people together, right?
Totally. Anyway. I have to go back because I was on the Waldorf school board. I love this school. I pushed the kids all the way through until their classes became too small. And but one of the things about the Waldorf school is it attracted some very eccentric characters. Some people who were just like people who, no matter what you did, they would be critical of it because it wasn't. Like I designed this new school and we didn't have enough money for it. So this woman came up to me after my presentation and she was like, why can't you expand your mind outside of a box? Like it shouldn't be a box. We should be thinking like different shapes. And I was like, we can't afford the fucking box. Like you know how much more expensive it is to build in a circle? And she was like, see, that's what I mean is you can't expand your mind. You think you can't do it, but you have to think outside the box. So anyway, so I was like, oh my God. And then one time I was like doing fundraising and we had this tax credit that you could get from Arizona. And I was supposed to call around to all the parents and say, hey, remember, it's not like it's a dollar for dollar credit. So the state just gives us the money and you don't have to pay it. You've already withheld it or something. So I call up and this one woman whose name was Ahu, and one of the parents in the class whose son was Finn, Fionn, and then my daughter was Xochitl. He goes, I feel like the school is a competition to see how many people to see if you can stuff the most vowels into a name or consonants that don't really it's like
naming new pharmaceutical. It's like the same process as naming new drugs happening at that school.
Totally. So then I call her and she goes, I said, I'm just calling around to ask for the tax credit. Have you done that? And she goes, did you know that it's illegal for the federal government to charge us taxes? Like taxes is illegal. And so I just was like, I need to hang up the phone. Anyway, so we were playing soccer on the back lawn and this parent comes up and she goes, I don't think it's appropriate that the Waldorf students play soccer because the origin of soccer was when the Vikings came to England, they would cut off the mayor's head of a small town and then kick it around and play a game with his head. And I was like, luckily the woman that I was standing with was like,
this is why people hate liberals sometimes.
She was like, that might have happened. like in
Yeah.
England, 15,000,
Right.
like
Yeah,
7,000 years ago.
Mhm.
She's like, but there's been other times when kids just, like organically started to kick around like a coconut, like it's like, it's
Yeah.
all over the world. People have been kicking
Right.
around a round thing
Kicking around a thing, to
and
play.
then pushing it through like a goal. And like,
Right.
think of the Aztecs were doing the basketball with their hip. And it's like,
Yeah.
people have been pushing around round things. Like, maybe one group of Vikings cut off the head of the mayor, but it's
Right.
not like, it wasn't like a thing, like no one, like,
Right.
you know what I mean?
That's not the canonical origin of soccer. Like
Exactly.
it was
So anyway, but she was like, I just feel I feel like the kids shouldn't be kicking the ball around. She also was like, it's very bad for their ligaments and their tendons. Like they're way too young, the weight of the mass of the ball.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, it makes me think of that Marc Maron bit where he's like, liberals, liberals, we annoyed America into fascism.
It's kind of true, right?
That's kind of his. He does a riff on that.
It's pretty true. But I wanted to go back to your thing about America not having a culture. Because do you remember Neil Gaiman, who has been canceled? Like, I'm pretty sure he's severely canceled.
Is he severely canceled? I
mean, if all this stuff, the sexual things are true, he's a terrible person.
Yeah, I don't know all the details. Yeah.
Anyway, don't bother to look it up. But let's say he was canceled, and I'm going to mention him. But American Gods, was that the name of the book? American.
It was one of his books.
And then they made it into that Netflix series.
Amazon
Prime. But what I loved about the premise was that people brought their gods, and you can use the analogy of culture, to America. Mm-hmm. And in some cases, they were able to hold on to it. Like my ex-girlfriend's family was from Taiwan, and her mom moved to
well, that's what I mean. Like my in-laws are Filipino, and that's their culture, right? Like they're Filipino American, and they have Filipino culture. Like that's
like when we go to Thanksgiving,
somebody who's like a white guy who's just from all of the European countries. I'm a descendant of basically all the European countries, and then I'm a multi-generational American after all of that. So that's what I'm talking about as an American. Like there's a certain strain of white American that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about all American citizens, because there's tons of American citizens who have a culture, but that culture is originating somewhere else or in some other affiliation, some other thing. Like I guess what I mean is, like in my group of classmates last night, 2 of us were like Euro descended white Americans, but not like German descended or Irish descended. Like that's even that is different, right? Like just like a mongoloid of Europe, right? Like just an amalgam of all the European countries, and then like 10 generations in America, whatever. Like it's just like that's the sort of the subgroup of America I'm talking about, that it's really hard to figure out what you decide is your culture when you're me.
Yeah.
So
no.
It's not like, so anyway, I don't know if that's where you were going, but I'm not saying that all Americans don't have culture, because there's someone who comes from Taiwan, that they have they find their Taiwanese people, and that's their culture, or Filipino or whatever.
And what my point was that, like, and it obviously varies drastically. And I think some cultures have a better framework and mechanism to maintain their culture abroad than others. That's for sure true. Like, right. Like there's some people are able to, and then I think what's interesting is, I think generationally there's a shift as well. Like I think like my mom is very nostalgic about passing along heirlooms. And, even like expensive antiques and stuff. And she'll just is like kind of focused on making sure that someone who cares about it will receive it later down the generational line. And I'll ask my kids, like, is anyone interested in taking on this heirloom? And they'll be like, not really. Like, we're trying to downsize already, and we're only like 31. Like, why do we don't need like more things to clutter up the house?
Stuff. Yeah.
And my mom, I think, like, for instance, my mom has this idea, because they used to have like very official sit down Thanksgiving meal with like a certain kind of china and silver, and like goblets that had like the name of the family like engraved in the goblet, right? And like none of us give a shit about that. Like we just don't. I went to like
And then the end of that, the end result of all that is then you're left with what's my culture, right? Like you're not rooted in, like
right.
your roots sort of fade away, because those things are roots in a way.
Yeah.
And I totally get the argument that you don't want that stuff. Like who would want it? Like, no, I don't want that the box of silver. And it wouldn't really be it wouldn't really be culture anyway. Like it's not going to be a substitute for that. But
Right.
somehow those things together represent some sort of rootedness to something. And then as you sort of like divest of all that stuff over the generations and years, then you end up like, what is my culture in a way, right?
It's interesting because, okay, so back to my ex-girlfriend's mom had come to Orange County, and there was a lot of like Vietnamese refugees came to the same town, Huntington Beach, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so there's like 67,000 Vietnamese former refugee families there. Yeah. And she was Taiwanese, and she didn't learn English, the mom of my ex-girlfriend, and she ended up working as like the head of accounting for Evergreen Shipping. And there's pictures of her like standing with like 12 white guys wearing suits in a conference room. And it kind of blows my mind that like she had just enough vocabulary to present the spreadsheets.
Yeah.
But couldn't really hold a conversation in English at all.
Yeah.
And then after she retired, she went to live in this Walnut, California, which is just like an enclave of Taiwanese people who can't speak English. So like there's like, I don't know, 5,000 people that just live there and they don't speak English. They just have Taiwanese shops and Taiwan, and it's like, so it's interesting that people do move to a place and then choose not to assimilate into the culture.
Well, yeah, and there's different levels of not assimilating, because that's fully not assimilated, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. You're right. That's super interesting. But then I think about like my wife's family, right? Like they're multi-generation Filipino Americans at this point, right? But like they're excited whenever like there's a Filipino contestant on, The Voice, or
they really
America's
identify
Got Talent, right?
Yeah.
Or is on, like they're really excited about there's Filipino on each of the basketball teams in the finals, right? Like, and they know that, right? So that's what, like they're fully assimilated Americans on the one hand, but they have a definitive, like a very definite culture that is Filipino American culture.
Do you think if you were to track
that if you sat in a room with them and you have they're challenged with the same question, like what's your culture? They don't have to reach for anything. That's it. Like they have a ready answer that they feel in their heart and they're attached to, right? Like it's a strange thing.
Do you think I know that there's
it's a strange thing not to have that.
Like anyway. I just made the statement that there's a lot of variability, and it seems like some cultural groups are able to maintain this framework that allows them the traditions, the heritage, and then like identity. They can like maintain it going forward once they've emigrated. Yeah. Do you think if you were like your wife's dad was the first generation, like he came from the Philippines? Yeah. Okay, so she's second generation,
right?
Immigrant.
Mm-hmm. And then there's
if you were to go back in time to like Sobieski, Constantine Smith, and then if you were his child, do you think that there would be the equal amount of kind of cultural?
I don't know about me. I mean, like, I don't know about that example, but I'll just say, like, for example, there are Irish kids at my kids' school, right? That come from Irish. There's just like, they're very Irish.
Yeah.
Like they're born here.
Yeah.
But like their grandparents are Irish.
Okay.
And so like that's their culture, Irish culture.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, interesting.
So like, like there's something about, I mean, culture doesn't always have to be about your ethnicity and your, it doesn't have to be tied to that and your national background kind of, but like that is a kind of a ready source of what somebody's culture is. So like, if with me, like, I don't know if I go back to my Sobieski, I don't know how, like, cause they were already sort of European mutts by the time my family came over here. Like, I don't know.
Okay, I
But
see.
like,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you like
Huh.
even in your family, you had like these Scottish traditions and stuff, like in Dutch or I don't know, but or Scottish, right?
Yeah.
Like you did
Well,
certain things, and so like if you're, yeah, so like maybe even with you, like your dad wasn't like a total European mutt like my family. Like he had maybe more identified with a specific Scottish culture versus just, I don't know, Europe,
I think
right?
too. I think too that there was okay. So you can imagine the example that I gave of my ex-girlfriend's mom. So she clearly went to work in the white world and was working at a big
Mm-hmm.
corporation. And then as soon as she retired, she fled from that. Like she went
Mm.
right back to where she didn't have to assimilate.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when I listen to the story of my ancestors coming from Scotland to Canada,
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you were Scottish or Irish, if you came to any of the crown colonies,
Mm-hmm.
you would be better off trying to fit in as an English person.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean? So you would sort
yeah.
of strip away your Scottishness
Right.
so that you could have better opportunities and, be considered for jobs. And I feel like there
Mm-hmm.
was like an effort to
Oh
assimilate.
yeah, yeah,
And
for sure.
that's partly why I lost a lot of access to some of those
And I think that's
traditions.
the same story that a lot of people of other ethnicities have, like in other origins in America, like especially in previous generations, like people who came in the 70s and stuff. Like there was enough discrimination and pressure to assimilate because like and so like as a consequence, my wife doesn't speak Ilocano, right? Like
Right. That
because her
language is a
parents weren't
huge
her
thing. Yeah.
parents were more interested in her assimilating than her
Yeah.
maintaining her culture, and that's a common story. Like we hear
Yeah.
that in that generation of immigrants a lot, of immigrant children of immigrants, right? That there was but I think people who come more recently are a little more nuanced about like, hey, we should maintain, like your culture is important, right?
Yeah.
Like there's this balance between assimilating and maintaining your culture that I think is more healthy now than back then. Yeah, but I also think like America is like there's these sort of like metaphors, right? Like about whether America's a melting pot, and then people say no, it's more like a salad, right? Like
Mm.
it's a mix of different cultures and they don't just melt together. But I think it's both, right? Like
Yeah.
when I look at my kids, they are half Filipino, right? And they identify with the Filipino side. But if they have kids if they grow up and get married and they have kids that are like, it does melt
Yeah.
away
It does.
to
Yeah.
some extent. Like their Filipino side will become more and more diluted in theory over
Yeah.
the years, unless they marry Filipinos, right? Like, so there is a melting pot aspect to America, and there is a salad aspect to America.
Mm. I wonder, like, once I made this funny error where I was booking a flight actually to come visit you in outside of Chicago at the lake.
Mm-hmm.
So I booked my flight and then I booked my rental car, and I didn't notice that there are two airports in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So I booked
Yeah.
the rental car at the other one by
Oh.
accident, just because I didn't toggle the right thing. So anyway, I go up to the counter and I'm like, here's my reservation number, and the guy's like, we don't have any cars, and I was like, well, I have a number, and he's like, oh, that's at the other airport. So then anyway, we had to take the train into town and then the train out to the airport. It was like a 3-hour
man.
thing.
Yeah.
But what was fun about it was my wife and I had never, we just wouldn't have ridden the train in Chicago.
Yeah.
And while we were moving through town, we were looking at the people around us, and it was like the most ethnically diverse set of people in a train car, more than in New York. It was like you had people from Africa and Central and Mongolians and Russians, and it was just people were speaking all these languages, and I was like, damn, Chicago is really ethnically diverse. I had no idea. I just thought of it as like a white Midwestern place, It was really cool.
Did you ever see that meme back in the day that was like, this is the future that liberals want? Do you know the meme I'm talking about?
No.
It was a picture from a train car. I think it was New York, but it could have been some other city. But it was like 3 or 4 people sitting next to each other, and one was like a total trans, like very flamboyantly dressed trans person, cross-dressing person,
Okay,
like
sure.
a trans performer, basically, not just like somebody
like
who's
a drag queen.
A drag queen. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for, right? Like one was like a drag queen. Like right next to that person was like a woman in a burqa, I think.
Oh shit.
And then, like, anyway, it was like 4 people who couldn't have been more diverse, right? Like
Yeah,
sitting,
yeah, totally.
and it was sent by some right-wing person on Twitter. Like, this is the future that liberals want. Like, how terrible, right? And then it was like widely taken up by people on the left. They're like, yeah, this is the future that we want.
Like coexist on the bumper sticker.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And so it's just kind of, I'll find the meme, because if you just search up that, this is the future that liberals want, it's that you'll find that meme.
This is a sequitur. Hopefully,
I might be remembering the Burqa wrong, but it was something almost that.
Did you hear? So D-Day happened, and then Pete Hegseth went over and gave a speech. And the Pod Save America guys, who were many of them were Obama's speechwriters.
Mm-hmm.
They were analyzing the speech, and they were like, I wonder if it ever occurred to the speechwriter. He gave this analogy where he's like, D-Day, there's another invasion happening where people from Afghanistan and Africa are flooding into, Sicily and Italy and Spain. And he's like, why aren't you guys stepping up? What are you going to do to step up to defend this? And they were like, does he get that means that the Europeans are now the Nazis? Like that, and that,
I know.
Like,
it was like we landed there to defeat Hitler, and then Hegseth goes there and basically makes a Hitler speech.
Yeah, he basically was like, "Why aren't you being more like Hitler? What the fuck?"
Right. Yeah.
And like saying that. But what was so weird is like we're celebrating
the troops that went there to defeat Hitler,
and now he's saying
while giving a Hitler speech.
Yeah, they were like,
the dissonance of that is crazy.
They were like, obviously he didn't write it himself, but they were like, clearly he hired a speechwriter who sat down, and were they punking him? Like, were they like,
no, the people who Hegseth and his speechwriters are fans of Hitler. That's the explanation.
But the analogy is so hard. So that's what's so weird. It's like, if you're a fan of Hitler, he fucking lost and committed suicide because of D-Day.
Right.
So like, if you're at D-Day and you're a fan of Hitler, don't celebrate that Hitler fucking lost. It seems sort of like the Confederates.
They think Hitler lost because of the woke allies. I don't know.
But that's who you're celebrating at D-Day.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So like, why go there? Why give a speech there? You should be like,
the
woke allies showed up on the beaches. They got lucky.
It makes your brain hurt, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
Did you see also today is Trump's birthday, I think, and they're having the UFC fight on the lawn, in that claw thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And someone
as the founders intended, right?
Someone I can't remember the meme exactly, but they pointed out there in Idiocracy there was a thing where the president goes and they have they do it's like, I guess.
Yeah, it looks the same.
It looks the same, yeah. And
it's
Owen
basically,
Wilson's,
the Idiocracy White House is not that much different than what the current.
Totally. It's pretty.
It looks like a Six Flags.
It looks like a Six Flags that's under construction.
Yeah.
That the back, they tore down something and then the architect quit and they, all
right. As a finishing thought.
Yeah.
All of this stuff. So like the Kushner and what's her name, Ivanka, were going to try to buy some island in the Mediterranean, and the Albanians massively came out and protested in tens of thousands, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's more to it. They were going to convert what was a nature preserve into a huge.
But what my point is, they were going to do this egregious thing.
Yeah. And the president overrode.
Then there was a massive uprising of the people.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's going to successfully stop it or what, who knows. But anyway, that's not my point. My point is that we have an endless river of stuff that's worse than that happening on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
But we're not out in the streets here as Americans, really. We do the No Kings protest once every quarter just to show that we don't like it. But why do you think is it just because there's too many things?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's,
Or is it something different about Americans where we just are we're more jaded and we just don't, because in other countries, in France, the price of something will go up 5 euro cents, and people the whole country is out in the streets.
I love the French farmers. They love to dump things on the steps of the Capitol. They'll just pour wheat or
and it'll be because somebody mentioned the idea of, I don't know. It's like, it seems so trivial when you hear about it. Like,
I think they most recently
but it brings
protested-
people out to the streets. And so we're not doing that here. And I don't really get the reason.
I think, obviously, I think a big part of it is that the country is so vast. And as you said, like a lot of people aren't paying attention.
Yeah.
And they just go about their day and they're like, the news? Like,
I think that's what it is. Like, most of us are prosperous and most of us are doing okay enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then also, like, it's also like, it feels like, I think we're doing okay on the one hand, but I also think everybody feels like their situation is precarious too. And nobody wants to nobody wants to mess with in a precarious situation. We have if your livelihood feels precarious, you don't want to do anything to fuck it up.
Right. No, it's true.
I don't know. I think it's a lot of things, but it's an interesting difference.
It is.
Anyway,
it is.
I guess we should.
This was a fun episode. And enjoy the World Cup, or what are you're going to watch basketball, because we got the Knicks have another game.
I think it's a Saturday, or I don't know, I think it's the next game is Saturday, I think. Anyway,
I'll
watch some World Cup today.
I'll enjoy the sports that I do watch over the next few days, keeping in mind that you're a sports aficionado, and I want to cultivate that in myself so that we can expand.
No need. You just be you, man. It's all right.
Just be me. All right,
well, brother.
Lots of love. Talk to you soon.
Satellites? A satellite represents a journey, information gathering, this journey around the Earth.